Okay, Donnie, I've been working hard reading your book and preparing this idea. So as you can see on the screen, let's see, I'll zoom in a little bit more. This would be cool. This is what we should do. And this might be a cool idea for like a show to mix up the debate thing. So I have a chart here, right? Basic chart. Since we're both premillennial, so we believe we live in this period before the tribulation. Jesus is coming soon, even though he's a total heretic Baptist, and I'm a Adventist who has the last message for the world. But we're friends. Okay, so uh, the it's a basic chart that we agree on that there's heaven. We both agree that the eternal estate is on earth after the millennium, that the people who are thrown into hell, that is the permanent judgment of the lost, happens before that at the end of the 1,000 years. That Jesus comes, there's no pre-tribulation rapture, there's just a time of trouble, tribulation. We differ on the details right here, but we both believe that there's just one second coming and rapture of Jesus coming and rapturing the saints, and that the time of trouble leads up to that, and it's post the rapture happens here at the resurrection. Same thing. So me and him both agree on the second coming is the resurrection at the end of the tribulation, after the tribulation. He says he's pre-wrath, and I'm not pre-wrath, but it's like, I don't think the saints suffer wrath, obviously. They go through tribulation, and then then the wrath comes after that, or I would say more like at the same time. It's kind of a anyways. So here's the chart. This is what we do. This would be cool. This is fun. We could set it up in a couple different ways where we could just have a conversation and then challenge each other with the. So I have a list of verses right here, a ton of them. See that? See that work? These are the verses Adventists, and I have more too, by the way. I'm not done. We have Mark 13, Luke 21, Matthew 24, and these long ones. And then I think all these verses, which I think are all New Testament verses. I don't have any Old Testament verses yet that I think apply. But all these verses have definite indications of how this has to happen for it to be consistent. And I believe the Adventist view is the only view that can work with all the verses. Everybody else's view has these big problems, like, is that Jesus, which is why the pre-tribulation rapture exists. Because there's a few things that the pre-tribulation rapture people recognize that my view makes sense of. But your view is way more right, in my opinion, because it gets like the major things right, and it doesn't separate the church in Israel, which is false, because he's just not sustainable from the way the text is interpreted by the New Testament authors, just straight up. And so even somebody with a few wrong doctrines, like the Baptists usually have, from my opinion, like from my point of view. So I'm passionate about this, and so of course everybody just thinks I'm another nut, like all the dispensationalists out there that just say wild stuff, but they're not totally wrong. So everybody just gives up on premillennialism, even though it's like what you would get from the Bible, just like a basic, it's premillennial. Like that's the future thing. All the early church said that. It's like, except for when things got confusing because of false doctrine, like dead people being alive, for instance, and going to heaven before the resurrection and the return of Jesus, like the Gnostics taught. But anyways, so is what we do is you get your verses, or I mean, I'm sure we have basically all the same ones for the most part. I probably have a few up my sleeve that are going to really mess you up, though, just so you know. So you'll probably be embarrassed, terribly embarrassed, when you can't make sense of the verses, and I can. But no, I kind of mean that, but I'm in a friendly way. So we can say, we'll just go through each verse, and then we'll each have a chart like this, and we can set it up in a fun way where we're kind of debating or whatever, or we could do it separately and then come together and then challenge each other's timeline with the verses and then go into the text. But it'd be kind of fun. We could either go back and forth, do it at the same time within a conversation, but say, hey, okay, take turns. Like we'll take each verse in a box, and we each place where that verse is describing, and we'll just go through and just see if we can make them fit our model here, like off this basic chart. Like you put them, where does this verse go? what is this talking about? Where does it go? When is it? Place it. And we'll just see which view comes out on top. I know you have a few gotchas in there, like the moon and sun being darkened and this and that and the other. Some of these events, I think, are stretching over long periods of time, so they're through the church history to some degree. Some of them, perhaps. Um, there seems to be some verses that are difficult for either view. In particular, I think the full reading of Jesus passages that I showed in the last video I have issues for your view. Um, there's a few views depending on how linear and chronological you take book of Revelation, which I know you don't entirely. You can maybe make problems for me with the trumpets or whatever, but we can talk that through. I'll look at it closer, but we can at least start doing this. It'd be fun. We'll just go through I'll bring all the texts I can muster. You bring all the ones you can muster, and we'll go through and see where we agree, because we're going to agree on a ton of it. And then get down and really figure out which verses are problematic for the different views, and which views have stronger, um, you know, can make stronger sense of certain verses. I think this would actually be really beneficial for people to just kind of understand the issues and what different views say. Because a lot of people have a really shallow understanding of like, oh, that there are reasons why people are pre-trib, and there's a few reasons that make sense, but overall, the general sense, this is the right view. Like, we agree on this. There's a tribulation. There's this 1 second coming. It's after the tribulation. There is a 1,000-year period. That's a literal period in history that's future. And then there's a final judgment. So you take Revelation 20 straightforward, and so do I. Because the language of it connects too much to what Jesus taught and what the apostles echoed in their writings and their greetings and their admonitions and encouragements to the saints in their writings. And then that language is being explained in Revelation 20, albeit in a chiastic sort of pattern. It's not necessarily linear, which is how the book of Revelation is written. But I don't consider myself a literalist, really, in the sense that people mean it, even though I'm a premillennialist. I think it's a cop-out. Well, it isn't telling us something. No, it is. It is. Really important details. And they correlate to Jesus' literal historical teaching recorded in the Gospels. So this would be fun. Let me know if you want to do it. And I think it's a cool idea. We'll go back and forth, give each other verses, and have the other person place it, and we'll just go through and see if the timeline makes sense.